one thing that most service providers especially don't realize, but they should. If you have a good, better, best pricing system where you say, here's my cheapest offer, my mid-tier offer, my expensive offer, what most service people don't realize is effectively those are three different businesses. With a productized business like ours, I'm spending less time giving you a better result for more money. So it's like a true win-win, right?
That was Anthony Pierri, co-founder of Fletch PMM. You've seen his post blow up on LinkedIn, but what you might not know is that his time inside traditional marketing agencies has led him to form some pretty outlandish opinions and convinced him that the whole system is broken.
You're basically at opposite incentives of the client. Client is like, I'm paying per hour. I want them to move as fast as possible. The agency is like, I want to get as much money out of you as possible. So I'm going to spend the first 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a mood boarding exercise.
Instead of following the normal playbook, Anthony and his co-founder decided to burn it and build something totally new.
So for us, we love the productized model. It just fuels so many different things.
And today, he's here to share with us why most agencies are set up to fail.
Most agencies, as you get bigger, the margin gets worse because you're doing custom work. You're always starting from scratch. You have to hire more people. And so as you get bigger, the margin gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer.
How narrowing down to one specific problem can unlock a gold mine.
You become this expert and you can build a following easier. And then you get more and more efficient at it because it's always the same, and you could charge more. So over time, the amount of time you spend per client starts to go down and the price starts to go up. Well, with a productized business like ours, as you get bigger, the margin gets bigger, which is amazing, right? I'm spending less time giving you a better result for more money. So it's like a true win-win.
And a few untold stats and secrets about Fletch that I know you haven't heard before.
And we don't really share these like publicly much, so
I'd love to hear what you guys think of the episode. Be sure to tag me over on LinkedIn at Andy Milligan if you're listening, and we'll give you a shout out. Special thanks to Anthony, all of our supporters of the show, and be sure to follow along as we build the essential community for marketers right here in Columbus, Ohio. This is entry 115 of the podcast, and this is Anthony Pierri of Fletch PMM by design.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say not coming up in software and having my experience with the tech world be mainly influenced by shows like Silicon Valley and other funny portrayals of the venture-backed community. I came in kind of being like, wow, these people are so legit. They have everything figured out. Like, they must know what they're talking about. There's so much money in this space. And then very quickly realized, like, oh, you know, the whole emperor wears no clothes kind of concept that even these venture-backed companies from the best VCs in the world don't know how to explain their products and are running into all these funny problems that seem like they'd be so obvious, but are not, right? So I think that's one angle of just being in a different industry and always imagining that it must be so much more put together when you get there and then realizing it's not. That was like a funny insight. But I also came from doing marketing where there was no budget and everything was basically, how do we spend like $0 and get the word out? So whether it was for the companies that I was working for, I worked for a lot of churches, which had like virtually no budget. And then I also always had like a band that I was in that I was trying to promote, and we had no money. And so trying to think about getting distribution without having any money, I would always lean towards the organic algorithms of the platforms of whatever was the big one at the time, whether it was Facebook in the early days, then it was YouTube for a while, then it was Instagram, more recently things like TikTok. And so trying to get mini viral or build an audience was always a part of the strategy. And then getting into B2B and that not being the norm for most people. Most people were like, I have an infinite budget and I just run paid ads or I do outbound emails or whatever the strategy was. And so coming in from that angle, I think gave me an insight of like what you need to do to make something work organically is actually also the same thing you need to do to make something work through these paid channels. Like if it's not going to work from an organic standpoint, putting a bunch of money behind it probably won't really work very well either. And so you see this in a lot of the marketing orgs that they're under a lot of scrutiny because the marketing efforts are not really doing very much. And it's like, that's probably because it's something more foundational is wrong. Like if you couldn't get this thing to go semi-viral on its own or spread via word of mouth on its own, that probably means it's not being packaged or positioned the right way. So insights that kind of came from these very different parts of the world, I think impacted a lot then coming into tech. And then I met my co-founder working at basically a software and design agency. It was my first tech-related job, and it was a company based in Wisconsin, and they would work with all sorts of different software companies of different sizes. And so seeing on the inside of there, when we were doing basically custom services, so it was a different type of project for every single client. And so that flexibility, which could be seen as such a powerful thing to be like, we can provide all these different solutions, became fundamentally almost impossible to market because marketing is one to many. And if every solution is custom for a custom problem, you can't do one to many. It has to be one to one.
Hey, real quick, I just want to read something that Andrew Holst, the VP of Growth over at Huckle, submitted to us. This has absolutely been a home run. We have a much clearer message, a cleaner website, and a high-tech feel that reinforces confidence in our platform. Andy was well organized, no surprises, and a pleasure to work with MMG. If you guys don't know me, I am Andy Milligan. I'm the founder here of MMG Design in Columbus, Ohio. We are currently doing homepage breakdowns for a limited time, just a 3 to 4 minute tele video going over your messaging, your homepage, and give you 1 to 2 design tweaks to improve that homepage of yours. We definitely won't be doing this long. It is quite time intensive on our team, but I encourage you to take me up on this. Start a conversation. There's a huge value in removing yourself, the fish, from the water that is your product or your marketing messaging. So I invite you to take me up on this. Without further ado, back to Anthony, back to the podcast.
And so seeing kind of behind the scenes and then extrapolating that principle to the software world, where software, unlike if you sell shoes or some sort of consumer products that's very simple and maybe one-dimensional, one use case, when you have software which is similar to human-led services where it can be stretched and bent in all these different ways, it becomes the same challenge. How do we market an incredibly flexible software in the same way? How do we market incredibly flexible human-based business? And both of those come back to the concept of positioning, where it's like, what do we want to be known for? We can't probably be known for 100 different ideas because people struggle to remember 2 ideas, let alone even one. And so trying to be able to say, what is the thing that we're really going to focus on? That becomes the ultimate positioning challenge, especially in software.
Yeah, and I think it's an ultimate challenge too when there's no physical product. Like there's nothing tangible to really identify it with. Like you've used analogy before of like shoes. Like it's super easy for Nike to have their positioning because it's a shoe. Like everybody already knows what that is. Versus like software, it's not tangible. You really have to be the one that fits it in the ideal use case for your target audience. What can you say about focus and clarity if you had to help someone kind of focus in on that and your approach to that as a whole?
So I think one thing that most service providers especially don't realize, but they should, if you have, let's say, a good, better, best pricing system where you say, here's my cheapest offer, here's my mid-tier offer, and here's my expensive offer, and maybe you're trying to get people to pick the one in the middle. What most service people don't realize is effectively those are 3 different businesses and potentially like 3 different products for sure, but potentially 3 different businesses. And if you could think about it, like imagine it was a consumer brand and they had the cheap service was selling a shoe, and maybe the mid-tier service was selling, I don't know, a winter jacket, and the expensive one was selling a car. You'd be like, man, can you run all 3 of those businesses at the same time? Like, can you build the factory and the infrastructure to make the car, and a different factory and all the infrastructure to make the jacket, and the factory and the infrastructure to make the shoe, and then also to be able to get the word out for all three of these things.
Mhm.
Most service providers, because it's a human, it obscures the reality that we're talking about different businesses. And so since the beginning, we have been extremely diligent in limiting ourselves to one service. Right now, we have different pricing tiers. We're trying this like value-based pricing concept, which I actually have made fun of a lot. So here I am kind of trying it. But we are doing it in a way that most people don't do, which is we're making it public. Like the shady thing is to say, I'm going to price the client, not the product. And I won't let anyone know that I'm doing this. So when I talk to one guy, I say it's going to be $100,000, and I talk to another guy and I say it's going to be $50,000 because he seems like he can't afford it.
These small things, those are like all the objections that we have to overcome. And it's like, dude, humans can sniff bullshit out of anywhere, man. Especially when they're constrained with limited information. It's like you make these assumptions in terms of how people price, how they do. And I think it's so common, like, especially in marketing, where that's the majority of the population.
So that those examples, right? So we've been doing this pricing tiering where we're saying, we're just being public about it. It's like in the first scroll of our website, even we're saying we do charge you more if you're bigger, but that's because this process will be more confusing and complicated and have more things that we have to think about. And potentially the resulting value of it will be so much higher. Like if you shift a big enterprise 10 degrees this direction, that's maybe multi-billion-dollar change, versus if I shift a early stage company that doesn't have any customers yet, maybe that's a $0 change. Maybe they get a customer or something and it's great. But either way, so we are, from the beginning, we were like, let's just do one service, and it unlocks so many things. If you do the same service over and over and over again, you get really good at it, you become known for it, and then you have this content loop where you can say, when I do more of these projects, I learn more things and I share those things, and then more people want to work with me, and then I learn more things and all that. So there's a big benefit there that you become this expert and you can build a following easier. And then you get more and more efficient at it because it's always the same, and you can charge more. So over time, the amount of time you spend per client starts to go down and the price starts to go up. So most agencies, basically, as you get bigger, the margin gets worse because you're doing custom work. You're always starting from scratch. You have to hire more people. You have to hire managers of those more people. And so as you get bigger, the margin gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Well, with a productized business like ours, as you get bigger, the margin gets bigger, which is amazing, right? I'm spending less time giving you a better result for more money. So it's like a true win-win, right? Agency is like, I want to get as much money out of you as possible. So I'm going to spend the first 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a mood boarding exercise. And let's do, effectively like a multi-$10,000 Pinterest board to like, lay these things out. It's like, did you really need to do that? Or is that just a way to squeeze some money out of these people? So for us, for people, especially agencies and things like that, like we love the productized model. It just fuels so many different things. And I think a lot of generalists are afraid because they're like, but I have so much to offer and I want to get bored. And aren't these things, I don't want to be locked into one corner. And I've said this in the past, but like every specialist is a generalist also. They've just decided to market their most valuable specialist part of them. So you'll never find a specialist who truly doesn't know anything else. They often are great generalists, but marketing generalist stuff is almost impossible. Like it's like the difference between a doctor, an all-purpose general doctor, going and knocking on people's doors and being like, "You struggling with anything?" And they're like, "What? You knocked on my door." They're like, "Well, what's wrong?" And they're like, "Well, what are you offering me? What do you have for me?" They're like, "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" Versus like, a specialist doctor who could say like, oh, I only treat athletic injuries of this certain kind. And you could do outbound in that world. People come to you and you become the specialist, and it unlocks all these things. But you're still a generalist at heart. You just have decided to market the most valuable part of what you do.
Yeah, that's such a hard transition to make, man. Like I consume like a ton of content. I'm always on LinkedIn, and you see the ones that there's so many use cases, especially when you're solo. It's almost like the smaller you are, the less problems you can realistically solve. So it's just a more productive use of your time and energy to create that clarity. It's just so hard for people who have started so big to come over that overcome. It's like you're missing out on so much potential work. And it's like starting anything new, you know, it's shit in the beginning and it sucks. But it just takes reps, right?
Totally. And
and
the interesting thing along
ahead.
those same lines is that we did an exercise recently. We looked over all of our clients. So it's me, my co-founder, and a copywriter. The three of us, we've done all the workshops directly with the clients. There's no outsourcing, no one behind the scenes. So it's truly us. And we've done this process now a little over 400 times with 400 different companies. We did this exercise where we looked across our 400 companies that we've worked with in order, chronologically, and we tried to evaluate, were they satisfied or unsatisfied in the end of the project. And we were batting, 40% satisfaction at the beginning. I'd say for the first 50 projects, as we were trying to figure this thing out, we're like building the plane where we were flying at. Like half the people had a bad experience. And then as it went over time, we get into 100, 200 companies, 300 companies, ticking up to 400. Now it's like, I don't know, 95% of the people we work with are satisfied and have like a great experience. And then maybe 5% like it was like not a good fit. Like we should have disqualified them at the beginning. And so the crazy thing to me then is thinking back to all the custom service agencies out there and being like, imagine if you only had one rep for every possible solution because it was always a different problem. Like, what's the likelihood that you're going to be giving them a good outcome when it's like it? And maybe we suck, right? Maybe we just suck, and it took us 400 reps to be able to consistently deliver a great output. And that's true. I'm not saying that that's not true. Maybe these other companies are just brilliant people who can take any new problem and solve it in an elegant way. But I just think to it, I'm like, man, going to a general purpose custom problem solving agency where it's always something new, like I just would be so scared on the other end of being like a customer, being like, how do I know that this is going to be good? You're solving a new problem you've never solved before that I'm bringing.
And that's why you guys are perfect for. And I know, like, because I've heard you tell your story several times, and it always seems like, oh, it's so easy, it's so simple. Like, there were times when you guys were doing audits, like, you give all this stuff away. You've had to run through the iteration, like, literally 400 at-bats, so nothing is given. And you guys are ruthlessly and consistently simple. We talk about a lot about design on the show. Like, I have my own design agency, as my friend Tass Bober says, so I think you know.
I sure do.
Content is king, design is king. Or design is queen. I can't even say it right. Shit. But at what point do you think that becomes a bottleneck that maybe you would either bring up to a product marketer or a team? And what are your thoughts and philosophies sort of on design and the role that plays on homepages, websites as well?
So I am a wannabe designer and have been for as long as I can remember.
Your guys' shit looks great on
well, thank you.
The graphics are awesome. The Figma
thanks. I appreciate it. So in every job I've ever been in, I found a way to incorporate some element of design. So, at the very beginning, we were trying to figure out like how can we take this positioning strategy work and not just package it in a PowerPoint deck. And so we were like, how do we get it to where it can solve some real world challenges right away? And we landed kind of by happenstance on this homepage angle that we say the positioning strategy should be documented on the homepage in a customer-facing way. So then we realized we had entered into the homepage world. And so the original idea was we would take their design aesthetic and package the new copy in a wireframe that used their fonts and their logos and their colors and their layout, but used punched up language. So for a little while, we were actually trying to recreate their websites with our words in them. And then we realized, that's a lot of effort. They're not coming to us for design at that level. So this is probably misplaced as a way to sell this. So we scaled it back. And now we give them these wireframes, which look like a website, but they don't have fonts, colors, and logos. But what we've realized is there still has to be a level of aesthetic pleasantry, if you want to say it that way, even in the wireframe, because when the wireframe is so ugly, it's really hard for them to even understand. Like, they will evaluate the words as if the words were bad because the presentation is so poor. And so some people, and no dogging anyone who does this, but some people give copywriting in a Google Doc, and it's just the words. And it's like so underwhelming. So, you know, even the wireframes, and we don't really share these like publicly much. So I could send them to you. Maybe you could share with the audience or whatever makes sense. But we try to use that like Fletch aesthetic, which is on our LinkedIn posts and stuff, even in the wireframes. Like, we have like these nice, you know, like like some of our signature design elements are like these really heavy drop shadows. I think there's like, it's like called like neo brutalism or something I learned later. But the wireframes like look cool. Like, they don't look like the company's brand, but they don't look like a Google Doc. They look like some sort of interesting aesthetic. And so to me, it's this fine line. And then I'm always on the lookout for new types of sections. But actually, me and my co-founder, I shouldn't just say me. Me and my co-founder are always on the lookout for new types of sections that we can slide in as options. So like we call one of the sections on a website, we call it like the differentiation section. And there's different ways to do this. You can imagine the us versus them table side by side. You can imagine a problem and solution, like before and after, old way, new way, like that. And then there are ones that we've seen more recently, like some companies have found really clever ways of showing how they're different than multiple alternatives. So like we saw this one company that had an interesting thing where it was like, their product was in the middle, and then it had like one product category that they were better than in a different category here and down there. And it was like this, and it was sort of like a mix of problem and solution, you know, differentiation. And it was like enterprise ERPs can't do this, you know, off the shelf tools can't do this. And then it was like in the middle. So then anytime we see that, we're like, let's take a abstracted, fletchified version and add it to our suite of potential sections that we could use. And then they all just become like tools in a toolbox. And when we build these wireframes, it's not just like everyone gets the same wireframe. They actually become pretty bespoke. And we're working from like a library now of, I'd say, 50 different sections with multiple iterations of each individual type. So it still is very much designed in a sense. And design matters a lot. Like you said, if content is the king, design is the queen. I think you need both royalty, you know?
Yeah, well, to me, there's the substance, and then there's the value that, and even in what you guys do, there's something to be said about handing over like a deliverable, like packaging ideas to where you have like this tangible thing you're looking at. It's like, oh, that's what we get, you know? It kind of like closes that feedback loop, justifies the investment. I want to talk about the homepage. Very new development. I feel like I'm catching this with you guys like right on the cutting edge of this. I just want to know, like, yeah, your homepage. Yeah, I'm putting you on the chopping block. What was the discussions internally sort of like? I know Riley's the one that designed it, knocked it out of the park. Just talk to me about that as a whole, what those discussions looked like.
So I've had this idea for like, and I don't want to, and I had this idea, and then Riley kind of independently reached it from a different angle. And then me and Rob, my co-founder, have talked about it, and it all converged. So this is not like Anthony's so clever or something. This is truly a very collaborative effort. Right. But me and Rob have talked about for a long time that same idea of like, why can't software be as clear as a physical product? Because there are physical products that do lots of things, right? You could think of a Swiss Army knife. Like if you went on the Swiss Army knife page on Amazon, like the product detail page, they call it, you'd see all the different use cases. You'd see exactly how much it costs. You'd see what people think about it, how it works, pretty much in one scroll. And it would give you all the answers. And people think like, oh, you know, if you tried to answer all those questions, it would be so overwhelming. But it's like, look at the last thing you bought on Amazon and count how many different points of information were on that Amazon page. Like there's literally hundreds or not thousands of points of information on any given Amazon product detail page. And I posted about that, and people were like, those suck. I hate them. And I'm like, okay, well, take a different one then, right? Go
probably
with your favorite.
Probably designers are the ones that talk shit about Amazon. Yeah. No.
But like take any product detail page of an e-commerce brand that you do like. In general, they will have way more information and answer all the questions that you would ever be curious about in essentially a scroll or two. And they can do it in very aesthetically pleasing ways. But when it comes to software, we're like, no, we can't do that. We have to hide it under layers and layers of opaqueness and vagueness and outcomes and things like that. So we were like, what if you could make a page on a homepage or whatever it is that was truly the same level as a product detail page, but for a software product? And, you know, you could imagine like in the old days when you'd buy software and it was in a box, you know, and it was like it came to your house in a box. Like, you know, you could have a picture of the box, like you're purchasing something physical. So we were like, you know, that's been in my mind for like 3 years. And me and Riley, every once in a while, we would talk about it. I'm like, remember that? Should we try that? And then Riley had put together this new, effectively a pricing section when we wanted to try these different pricing tiers. And then me and Rob, we were like, this is amazing. It's like it's every single answer to every question in a single little scroll. And it was like aesthetically pleasing. It was like nice and like didn't feel overwhelming. And so originally we were like, we saw Canva, and Canva it was so annoying. I saw it in the morning, and then in the afternoon they had already changed it. But in the morning, it was like one scroll. It was like design anything you want with Canva. And then the next scroll down was the pricing tiers on the homepage. And I was like, wow, look at that. Like literally, here's what it is.
Yeah.
Here's the pricing. No long drawn out build up to like, I need to make sure you understand that value before I tell you how much it costs. You know, I'm going to treat you like a child and make you walk through my sales pitch before I tell you the cost. Like just stealing people to be like, oh, this is so stupid. But Canva just put it right there. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I checked later and they had added some big AI modal and they pulled the pricing out. And I was so annoyed. But either way, so we were like, what if we just put this thing in the hero, like right at the top? And then Rob, to my surprise, was like, let's do it. And then Riley was like, let's hop on a call. We all jumped into Zoom. It was super just from the hip. We're moving things around, making points. And Riley's the actual designer. So he's, you know, the guardrails. Every time me and Rob would suggest something stupid, he'd be like, no, we cannot do that. We cannot have 4 primary buttons, you know, right in the hero. Like that's not going to work. So, so we get it up and we almost went one step further where I was like, what? And I couldn't convince Rob, but I was like, what if the whole homepage was just that modal?
Oh,
it was
my God.
truly a one scroll homepage. And Rob was like, I can't do it. It's too big. So maybe in a month or two, I'll get him around on it. But like just imagining you type in the homepage, and it's like when people first landed on Google's homepage and they were waiting for it to load, and they were just like, why is this website not loading? And they're like, no, it's done. It's just the search bar, you know? Like, maybe there's something there. But that was the thought. And then I posted it. Riley posted it on his page. I posted it on mine. And then it was just a flurry of comments. Some people like, this is awesome. The transparency, the clarity. And then the other half, probably more like traditional designers. Like, this is horrible. I hate it. They all pointed out that company Icon, which I don't know, you've probably seen.
That's what I was about to say.
This is the Icon thing all over again. And so it's been a funny couple of days for sure, but driven a lot of traffic to the site, a lot of people watching our demo video, a lot of leads coming in for us and Riley. So we're like, seems like it was a good experiment, even if we don't keep it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is like, you guys have got, and I know you like vibe marketer or whatever the hell you call it, but like,
I was joking around.
Not one to track. It's like, you guys got to track analytics on this. Like, because we use Clarity on all of our client sites, and I would just be curious to see, like, how does that affect scroll depth and just some of the heat maps and where people are clicking and stuff? And also just, like, dwell time, you know, because I imagine you're above the full dwell time is probably higher than, like, ever.
We should check that. I think actually Riley has that set up on our page. We just never look at it. And it's funny, too, because, like, Tass, who you mentioned before, she's always like, you know, people don't buy higher ticket B2B items like they do, you know, like a $5 thing that you saw in an Instagram ad. Like I've used this example before, but like, you know, the pop socket on my phone, like my purchase experience for the pop socket was very different than, you know, like a B2B software purchase for a big business. So, but to those ends, right? Like the individual metrics of like how long are they viewing and things like that, we don't really track as much because we figure if someone is going to work with us and ask us to weigh in on the most important questions of their business and ideally help them set a strategy that will change the go-to-market and product strategy for the next 24 months, like little things like button placement are just not going to make that big of a difference, right? Whether they buy us or not. So to me, the reason we went about this whole process was we were trying to solve a problem of people they would go on our website, they would book a call with us, and they would get on the call and they would say, so I know most consultants aren't really open about this stuff, but like, how much is this going to cost? And I'd be like, it's literally on the homepage right now. Like there's no hiding. And they'd be like, well, who have you worked with? You know, like, do you have any case studies you could? And I'm like, we have like 70, and we have like 70 before and afters on the website. And they're like, oh. And so they're always surprised, and they booked from the website. So I'm like, they just aren't scrolling to see these things. So
it's like you guys almost beat the game by doing that. And you guys have it's like overqualified buyers. It's like you guys, because the whole playbook and Riley's site is the same way, where you just have the hero section, social proof layouts, and then the process oversimplified. But then you have like persistent CTAs and all that stuff. Like, it makes it very easy to convert. And I can imagine like someone who's viewing it on mobile, it's just like it's the first thing you do. And I imagine a lot of you guys' traffic comes from LinkedIn.
It does.
And the people that, I imagine it's a pretty quick close if they get on the call and they're like, oh, I love your guys' graphics. Like, I haven't followed you guys for a year. So yeah, I know how that combo goes. But
and the other nice thing too is some of them are a no call close. They'll book a sales call, and we have this video that it's the same one on our website now. If they didn't watch it, we send it via email and say, hey, before we meet. And that's with our template. We call it the BOMB, the before our meeting template. And it sends out automatically with a Zapier, and it just says, before we meet, watch this video. It's 8 minutes long. It has the process, the pricing, the deliverables, exactly what it will look like. So, if you watch it, it'll really help our time be more accurate or, valuable. We've had people get the video and before the call even happens, be like, I'm sold. Like, send me the contract. Which is awesome, Oh but
God, dude.
To your point, right? These are all benefits again of the productized thing. If I'm going to do a custom scope, the whole system breaks down.
Yeah.
It only works if everyone is coming for the same process, for the same product, and that's why the efficiency even in the sales process becomes so much better. Yeah. And so, like with this whole website launch, change. The one metric we care about is not dwell time or any of that. The only metric we care about is, do people stop asking, so like, most people are cagey about this, but what do you charge? Because now you can't even open the homepage without the biggest text is the pricing, Man,
I wish we all had that problem, dude. But I think like that classic analogy is people that are over obsessed with, it's like this with anything in life. It's like the guy who's asking about like what type of creatine to buy rather than just like going to the gym, it's like you always optimize for those small pebbles, and that distracts you from like this underwhelming problem. It's actually the biggest needle mover. So you're probably uniquely fit to answer this question, but is there anything that you would say you're a little bit ahead of the curve on, that's informing how you act?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know if we're ahead of the curve. We are very like by the book's basic marketing strategy. Like, we've joked around that I made a meme one time, and it was like, the guy from like the McMahon guy from WWF.
Yeah.
And like, the one where it's like each thing, and he's getting progressively more like, getting more excited. And it was like, basically it was like, Anthony and Rob share like literally marketing 101 ideas. And he's like kind of excited. And that's like, we put him in a cool graphic with colors and arrows in this style. And he's like more excited, right? It's like, we call it a framework and do it step-by-step process and share it on LinkedIn. Like, we are not reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? So to us, like the stuff that you could think of it maybe ahead of the curve, a lot of the stuff we talked about maybe in consulting is like, I can't think of a single consultant who has the price on their home, like in the hero of their homepage, right? Like, I think we are truly the only people in all of consulting or service businesses who's doing that. So maybe that's ahead of the curve, and I don't know if it's going to work or not. Maybe it feels like it's doing something, but in terms of like, in general, our marketing strategies, we're leaning on the basics, right? thought leadership, providing a ton of value, giving it away for free. And depending on where you come from, right? Like, especially in consulting and service businesses, people are like, I don't want to give away the secret sauce. But we think it's the opposite. It's like, share all the secret sauce, because that builds your credibility that you actually know what you're talking about. It lowers the risk perception of people wanting to work with you, because they're like, I know exactly what they're going to do. And like at one point we were like, hey, if you want to know what our positioning process looks like, we actually took a real client through every single workshop on LinkedIn Live. So we did like the first workshop was on LinkedIn Live. The second workshop was on LinkedIn Live. So you could literally tune in and watch us do the whole process. So it's like you could worry, oh no, someone is going to steal the method, and they're going to sell it and stuff. But again, that's where the distribution advantage you get from being so consistently helpful, providing value, sharing your frameworks for free. Like, you build the audience. And so even if someone took our framework and approach and like tried to sell it, like, it's like, okay, go for it. If you want to use it, sure. Like, are we going to lose really any clients? Probably not. Because the people that follow us, like you said, don't really book sales calls unless they've been following us for like a year. They're like, that's the best customers. And those are the bulk, are people who say, I've been reading your stuff for a year and I'm finally in this place where I need it. And you're the only person who came up. You guys are the only people on my short list, because I already have been convinced by everything you've been sharing. So I don't know if those are ahead of the curve or not, but they are things that are working.
Yeah, no, dude, that's perfect, man. And listen, man, I see nothing but up and to the right for you guys. I learn a lot from your content, but it has helped me a ton in my process as I, pay down my ignorance debt from being lovely and non-industry experts like we both are.
Yeah.
So like, I see nothing but up and to the right for you guys. Huge fans of you both. And I want to give you a chance to plug everything that you guys got going on. Where can people go to learn more about you, Rob, and keep up to date on all the personality and funny stuff you guys got going on?
For sure. I think our LinkedIn profiles is probably the best place to start. Give us a follow or direct connect, I connect with pretty much everyone who reaches out, and that's a great way to stay in touch. And then, even just for ideas and things, like, check out our website in terms of like, if you're a consultant or a freelancer or whatever, we think you should steal the ideas, and I'm really curious to see, can we get even one person to try the same angle of like putting it all right there? So if you're brave enough to put it on your homepage, how we have it on our homepage, shoot me a message. We'll give you a nice shout out and be like, these people are crazy like us, they're trying it too. So maybe if one person in your audience does that, I'd be happy to give you a nice big shout out.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Entry 115 of the podcast. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. That helps us reach more high-performing founders and marketers just like yourself. And we've been at this every Tuesday for almost 2 years now. If you've enjoyed this episode with Anthony, the dude is a gem, be sure to follow him over on LinkedIn. If you did enjoy it, you're going to definitely enjoy some of our content up here. So be sure to check that out. Give it a click.